Nigel, marking an anniversary.
Yes, indeed, 2 years this week, really. In fact, of Tuesday, that the stadium obviously collapsed, the roof collapsed. So it's been a really interesting, I guess, in a terminology, a character-building time for everyone involved this last 2 years.
There was great zest and enthusiasm to do the rebuild, obviously. Targets 2012, and they've been missed. Do you sort of regret rushing into it that much in terms of the promotion of it? Does it hurt you?
It has hurt us in the sense of, I guess, from a publicity or public point of view, in the sense of when we were going to be finished. What we did at the time, obviously, was took all the information that we had from the experts, the professionals. One master builder in town told me we would have this new building built within 15 months, and I have a huge respect for him, obviously. But obviously, no one predicted the Christchurch earthquake, and that has had a devastating effect on not only the cost of the building, but the time frame around getting the rebuilt. So it's we had to put a line in the sand at some point, and but it's been really difficult because that line has changed on 3 occasions now. So it's all about credibility out there. But I guess what we can promise to the wider Southland community is that we've done our very best, and that we will have something for Southlanders to be very, very proud of going forward.
There's a lot of confidence about March this year, so March next year, and there's been a further delay. What's that, the latest one, and how much confidence can there be in that next date? Yeah,
we were absolutely confident around March 2013, unquestionably. That was going to be the date, the readjusted date, and then we received a bombshell from the engineering report on stage 3, which we'll call it, which is the old foyer stage. That's the piece that actually stood up in the whole collapse, really. And our initial indication some 2 years ago that it would be fine, and then we'd just rebuild around it, perhaps a lick of paint and some recarpeting and so on, and we'd get there. Unfortunately, the report that's come back under the new building code and the earthquake code has changed that significantly. It was a $6 million build, you know, it's up to $7 or $8 million now. And I don't say that with any arrogance, that's just reality now. That's what it's cost. So it's put a real pressure on the project team at the moment to find that additional funding just to get stage 3 completed. This is stage 3, which is the redevelopment of the foyer area. And as we look up, obviously, the old foyer looked quite big when it was there, but obviously we're a lot higher coming off the existing community court now, where you see the white trusses. It's going to come right across the span, basically to where the gate is here. So it's a huge new redevelopment here. The people will spill out from here, go down to the promenade through here or out behind me here. So a major redevelopment in this area here. It's about a $6 million one. Originally we started with 12 piles, went to 24 piles, and now we're at 44 piles. So that's an engineering issue moving forward again as a result of the earthquake. So that's why we have the cost adjustment in that redevelopment.
So what are the other avenues for this additional funding?
Well, we've had the $8 million from the traditional funders, the Invercargill City Council, the Invercargill Licensing Trust, the Community Trust of Southland, and of course Lou Crimp gave us the $2 million. So that was a fantastic start. We've gone to central government, as you're aware, and that's been difficult, just with the Christchurch earthquake, but we're going back and knocking on the door because we believe that this is Southland's disaster in its own small way. We had the farming disaster around obviously the snowfall, but the stadium was the focal point of our community. So that's our pitching point to central government, and we believe that we have a really strong case around that. So going back to central government to try and see if we can get some response from them, obviously. Looked at other opportunities also. When we built the Stadium Southland Velodrome, for instance, at the end there, it was going to be a $6.5 million build, and we called it a track and a shack for the crudelity of the actual situation. We ended up with an $11 million facility, which I believe is world class. So we went back to the general public at the end, and we actually got $750,000 from the public. So things like a public appeal are now starting to loom in the sense of how could we do that. Had a few phone calls from some individuals saying, hey, we'd like to donate, you know, $500 or $5,000. So that's a fantastic opportunity. A little reluctant now until we know where our whole community, that's our major funders are, and of course, as you're aware, naming rights is now coming into the picture.
Is that helping the shortfall, or is it something you'd already budgeted to get?
It's a new addition, really. A lot of us have been talking about it for a while. In fact, the naming rights is now a critical issue going forward. The committee around that are meeting this week around that, and we've had some good response from the wider community, New Zealand-wide, in the sense of naming rights. I guess our attraction for that is that we are, again, multi-purpose. We've got a couple of franchises playing out of the venue. So we've got the Steel and the Sharks, both training and playing out of the venue. And as you're aware, we had around about 80 events per annum going through the venue. So we were probably the most used venue in New Zealand in the sense of event structure. And we had some big entertainment events also. So we've got a few strings to our bow to offer to any potential sponsor going forward. So it's going to be very competitive.
So Southlanders might have to get used to the McDonald's Stadium or the Coca-Cola. I'm just guessing some names here. It might be a generic international brand.
It could be, and we had a chat before about that, and it's interesting where perception is around people. There's lots of stadiums I could name now worldwide that have names around them, obviously. A little bit more traditional down here. Stadium Southland has its own ring about it. It's owned by the people of Southland. It's the People's Stadium. It may get a bit of used to, but we've put it out there to the public and we've had no negative feedback at the moment. So, yeah, it possibly could be a Coca-Cola or whatever.
Anyone who alleviates the financial pressure, I think there's an understanding there, surely.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of money involved, Tom, if you've got something to offer, but it's only worth what people are prepared to pay.
We're right in the middle of centre court now, aren't we?
We are indeed. This is basically Events Court 1, so stage 1 and 2 we are here.
Same orientation as before?
Exactly the same as we played the last 10 years, obviously, before the demise, yeah.
Except there'll be permanent seating at one end?
Yeah, what we had down the far end, we had a rock climbing wall down there, obviously. This time we've gone for permanent seating with some retractable seating at the front of it also. So 800 seats, as you see, 400 at the top, and then retractable seating coming off the wall, another 440. So what it does do, it gives the opportunity for promoters to come in and either use it as that sort of seating, or putting the retractable seating away, putting some corporate seating in front of it as well, so two-dimensional.
Okay. And on this side we'll have Court 2 again, with retractable seating as we got used to?
Yeah, the old Ray Harper stand. In fact, the only wall that stood up when the building came down, so that's how sturdy Ray was, but another 1,200 seats on that wall, retractable, which can come out to any configuration that you might need. So if you're wanting 400, 600, 800, we can bring it in and out just to meet your needs, so or meet the promoter's needs. So that was a fantastic stand, and that we used frequently for most of our events.
Okay, and for shows, the stage would be where?
Just right in front of us here.
Right in front of the...
As we had for the likes of a Hayley Westenra, we had for Billy Connolly, or so back into this area here. Although we have greater opportunity now with the size of the building to build up bigger numbers. We are an A-list venue now, or prescribed as one, so we can seat 4,017 people in the new venue, because over in the back wall, community court, we have another 1,200 seats that are permanently going to be there.
Okay. So there'll be, you can bring seats to the end of this court.
So another stand that actually, first in Australasia, that you and I can drive off the back wall, in quarters or halves or three-quarters, bring it out and sit it, so we watch the netball or the basketball this way, or we can turn it on the angle to watch a show that may be performing here. So all those seats are padded, so a step up from where we were in the previous build.
Good to see all the camera positions in readiness.
Yeah, something new.
I was very pleased about that.
Work closely with yourselves and with Sky and so on. So yeah, it just gives another advantage, trying to take technology to its next step and give you a better viewage and vantage points from a television coverage perspective. So we put a lot of work into that. And of course behind us is the old corporate area here. And that's the piece of the building, Tom, that's the existing part, which we're having the trouble with at the moment.
Okay. End of the day, you might have to borrow some money. That's an option, isn't it? To
well,
go out and it's something you'd have to consider the same way other stadia, for so far, a perfect example, to borrow some money.
Absolutely. Hamilton Cycling Centre, they're borrowing, you know, an exorbitant amount of money, 28 million. Claudens, they borrowed $78 million, the council did. So if we have to do that, it's the last, we want to open debt-free if we can, but the question we've asked the community now is that future generations, what is so wrong with them actually having to contribute going forward? And because it's their children and their children and the grandchildren will all actually have the benefit of a brand new multi-purpose venue that we're going to create. It's only going to be, if we have to do that, a couple of $1 million, and I don't say that arrogantly. But to service that, I believe we can service that over a period of time. So it may be the last cab off the rank that we have to do. We went out to the community and canvassed them at length and said, hey, what do you want in your new facility going forward? Insurance company, fantastic, NZI, absolutely hugely supportive right from day one. The quickest ever turnaround in an insurance policy in the history of NZI. We were very grateful for that. But obviously things have changed a little bit going forward. But so we took that community feedback and put it into the planning phase, and of course we got something bigger and better in the sense of a universal design, which is really important to us as well. So a multi-purpose, multifunctional, new term, multi-dimensional now, which seems to be the grab word in the industry, but it's multi-dimensional as well. So we would be, without a shadow of a doubt, the most versatile venue, I believe, in Australasia going forward.
What about the corporate entertainment facilities? So we used to, the pre-match entertainment, the ones that used to look over the courts. What's the equivalent in the new building?
We have behind us, of course, where the old corporate rooms were. Now we've extended out beyond that. Now we're putting a brand new lounge out the front here, which will have about 150. So we can corporate host out that area as well. That'll overlook the whole Surrey Park precinct, really, what's out there, and bring them down. They can come down either into their seats and over here, or the new stand over here, or into the Ray Harper. So it's a new addition, big space, but it'll be beautifully set out and done. So it's a corporate area as such.
And the number of community courts that would have, same as before?
Same as before, but different floor surface. The flooring's just arrived from Denmark as we speak, so it's just been loaded into the venue. It's getting acclimatised now, and it'll be laid around about December this year.
That's just wood?
Yeah, wood, exactly the same as the surface we brought in from Singapore from the World Champs that we've played in the last 2 years in the velodrome. Right. So every court will be wooden sprung, identical. So we'll have 7 wooden courts in this building, and we're going to keep the existing court, which will give us 8 wooden courts for the total venue. Right. And that's a first for New Zealand, really, in the sense of...
And there'll be tennis, netball, basketball, or they'll be designated for certain sports?
Tennis will be transferred into the velodrome, obviously, but everything else in here. So it gives us a lot more opportunity to bring international and national events and tournaments to Invercargill, because sports such as netball and basketball and badminton are all asking for a minimum of 7 sprung floors. So that's what we've got.
I think we've got something quite unique in Southland to offer a prospective sponsor coming forward.
Yeah, have you got a price tag on it, or is that part of the negotiation?
What we've done is we've prepared a paper from some historical data around the venue, in the sense of what we've held before, what the commercial market is around TV rights and so on and so forth. So that's quite big, because we have the international franchise, netball in particular, with live television coverage, quite important really. And I guess the entertainment part of it also is very important. When you put the package together, I believe it's quite significant money, to be fair. The time frame around that would also be interesting, whether you go for a 5-year term or 5 + 5 or a 10-year term. Once you stretch things out a bit, of course, things can either become worth a lot more, or, as you know, if the business isn't going as well, less. So that's a really important point for that committee to work through, obviously.
And looking at the delay, I think there's a positive in that March would have been a bit of mid-season for netball and basketball. At least they know what they're going into, that they're in their velodrome for another year, and they've been there before, they know how it operates.
Yeah, pretty difficult for them. They were really looking forward to the 4,017 seats, and they were looking at their membership, which was critical to them, really, of how they could build their franchise into that brand new international venue. So there was some real exciting times for them in their preparation. They can't do that. But we've been successful for the last 2 years in the Stadium Southland Velodrome. It's been fantastic. And we've got to have successful winning teams on the court, obviously, to attract the crowd. So that's the challenge for both franchises. And it's about communication, Tom. We have to communicate. It has been difficult. There's no question. It's been a really difficult time. But we've had fantastic support. The folk I actually feel the most for is actually my team, my staff, that have just been in trying times for 2 years, to be honest. I've got a fantastic team. And the conditions that they've been in, working in the 3 or 4 in this particular office, there's 4 down in what they call the dungeon down the hallway with no windows. It's been hard work. And to keep the place going and keep the enthusiasm going and make it the live place that it was hasn't been easy. And now they've got to endure another 6 to 7 months in these conditions here, with no certainty going forward that we will have our administration block built, stage 5. So the likelihood of a portacom somewhere is not endearing to my team, to be honest. We'll face that challenge as we go forward. We are going to complete stage 3, whatever it costs. Right. That's going to happen.
So just recap for us what 4 and 5 are.
So 4 and 5 is actually the outside of the facility. That's all the site works going outside. So it's about, we have a couple of issues around the moving of the Invercargill Harriers club rooms, for instance. We haven't got access into the frontage of the building yet. So we're working hard with that group of people to try and find a positive result, so that we may have to shift them so that we get some access around there and get the TV trucks round to the back of the venue. It's just a simplistic thing that we haven't got room. We simply haven't got space as we move out of the foyer area for the young kids coming out of the foyer. It's actually a health hazard, to be honest. So we've got a small canteen further down that we have to move as well. So we're working very closely with those groups, trying to find a solution that's going to meet their need and obviously our need going forward. There's about a $500,000 price tag around all that. And stage 5, of course, is the community house, which obviously is going to house sports groups. It's fully booked, fully rented out now. Obviously, it's going to house our team. But there was the top floor was a multi-purpose functional area. So for particular events, groups could come in and use that area also. But on a daily basis, fantastic area for space, whether it be for educational purposes, whether it be for sports groups coming in. And we've had huge interest in that area also in the renting out of. So it was just another big chunk of space that we were putting in the system for future development and to try and future-proof our growth going forward. And that's the key thing. You know, we had huge success over a 10-year period. The growth's really important. We've got to cater for growth.
So here in front of me here is stage 5, which is actually the last part of the process, really. And it's the community sports house, but it's really pivotal in the sense of future-proofing the development of sports administration going forward. So obviously our team would work out of here. We've rented out the first floor, obviously to existing sports organisations and new ones, and the top floor is an area really for multi-purpose development, creating some new events and so on, and for events teams when they come in to run a specific event. So it's about 1,200 square metres, a big area, but we could have, for instance, we could have some dance in there, some gymnastics in there, a whole raft of activity, and some educational centre as well. So we've had some real interest in that particular area going forward.
And remind me where the groundwork fits in, because when you look at this, obviously there's, work has to be done, but it would look nice.
Yeah, we have to move this playground here, obviously behind me, and turn it around, obviously because that's where the building's going to be. So it's going to come right out here. So that's a little bit of the site works that we need, and obviously project 4 or part 4 is the beautification around the front of the building, the foyer area, which is over here, and round by the athletics building. So obviously we have a challenge, as we've talked about, with the Harriers and moving that particular building to get some space there. And the health and safety of the foyer, obviously, with people coming out, the overspill, we've got to tidy it up big time. So it's a big area, obviously put some paving in and some seating, probably run some flags across there, make it a little bit of a CAF boulevard type situation out in front.
Okay, so just to clarify, stages 1, 2 and 3 will enable you to open as a sports facility?
Absolutely.
And 4 and 5 may be delayed or may not by July?
4 certainly won't be, because if we haven't got it operating outside, we won't be able to put people in through the foyer. So
okay, so 4 has to happen, right?
Has to happen.
And that's part of the overrun identified, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Right. And what about 5? How does that sit?
Stage 5, from an operational point of view, has to happen also. It's when it happens. So it won't affect the day-to-day operation of the new facility at all. It's a standalone facility. It's out here just where the children's playground is. So it's not going to affect us. We're trying to line it up in the same building line-up as when we finish stage 3, we go into stage 4 and 5. That's the process, but it's got a $3 million tag on it. So we just have to be mindful. At the moment, we're not going to try and eat the elephant in one sitting. We're taking chunks of it. We've got to get stage 3 finished. That's our immediate challenge as of today. Naming rights will assist with that. Stage 4 we have to do. We have to find some more money for that. And stage 5, we are committed as a project team to make it happen. We have to make it happen. We're obliged to the Southland community to make it happen.